I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning around. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It is the 5th of March, 2014. Live tonight. Hanging out, as you can hear in the background, no doubt, it is my little chainsaw snoring dog monster here as I'm trying to rub her belly and get her to stop snoring so loudly. Never works. Anyway, tonight, my show, as I promised last night, is going to be about health. I'm going to focus for 2 hours about health. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't do this properly without bringing my guest on tonight. Now, she's been on my show before. Her resume is about 1.5 miles long, and I'm going to make her spend about 2 minutes just reintroducing herself for the newer listeners, just in case some of the people that might have just tuned in recent weeks have never heard some of my older broadcasts, might not have heard her on before. I want you to get a chance to meet my guest tonight, because she is just a one-of-a-kind lady. She is awesome. She is super knowledgeable. And I don't want to waste any more time without having her live. So let's bring her live. Joni Abbott, welcome back, my dear.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be on here with you again. And what an introduction. Thank you so much. Well, I'm blushing.
You totally deserve it. You are definitely a one-of-a-kind lady, and you are an awesome human being. So before I even get into the topic of health or anything else that we're going to talk about tonight, like Landon's story, Sierra.
Yeah.
I want you to take a few minutes and just, for the newer listeners, because I have a whole slew of newer listeners, introduce yourself to my newer listeners, and I want you to plug all your stuff, because after tonight, they're going to want to listen to you. So go ahead.
Well, thank you. Okay, so hello, newer listeners, and hello to the old ones as well. I'm Joni Abbott. I'm from naturalnewsradio.com. I have a show called Homegrown Health that airs every Monday and Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And you just go to naturalnewsradio.com and click on the left-hand player, and it'll come on. Basically, the premise of my show is that I raise children outside of the modern medical model. Not that I don't believe in doctors or emergency medicine, but it's that I have learned to do many things on my own at home, including home birthing, homeschooling, breastfeeding, baby wearing, and health. And so learning to use food as medicine, as the father of medicine, Hippocrates himself said, let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. I started to make a really pretty great connection with the foods we were eating and noticed a difference in our health as a result. So the more we ate healthier, the healthier we became, and the stronger our immune systems were. We didn't get sick as often. My children didn't suffer from many of the normal childhood ailments that you see kids having today, from eczema, psoriasis, allergies, asthma. None of those. They didn't have any of them. I mean, if we get the flu, it lasts, 3 to 6 hours, maybe 8 hours at the absolute most, and we're done. We don't know what it's like to have, 3-day flus or 7 days flus. Not that we don't get sick, but when we do, our body's able to better recover from it. So I really advocate for home birthing and birthing choice, informed consent with every medical decision. And I also advocate for parental rights and our ability to choose what we feel is the best interest of our, for our children, what we feel is the best medical treatment for our kids. And there you have it. I have so many things. I also host the Robert Scott Bell Show, and he's out and about perusing the world, traveling and talking about how the power to heal is yours. He allows me to jump on his show and host for him, and he's also on the Natural News Radio Network as well as GCN Genesis Communication Network.
You have a Twitter account or Facebook or anything?
I do. It's Homegrown Health on Facebook, and you can tweet me at HGH Radio on Twitter.
You see, as I said, her resume is a mile long.
Gosh. Well, it's just more about doing and living and sharing my experiences with other people. And I'm still a student. I still learn from everybody. It's great.
I say that to the listeners, as well. I am not a master who has shut off his learning capabilities by any means. I'm not above anybody. I'm right in the trenches, right alongside everybody, to the left, to the right, and we're all in this together. And, the experiences that I share on air are things that I've either gone through myself or am currently going through. And, I just share the wisdom that a lot of the stuff that I impart on air is things that I've gone through in my personal life off air. And I try to, if it's helped me or been an experience where I learned from, I try to share that. And I find that that's how most people, that's one of the reasons why most people like this, whatever you call alternative media or whatnot, because we're real. They can relate to us as opposed to some Ken or Barbie doll news head who's talking total propaganda.
Right, or who's just reading from a teleprompter. Anybody can read from a teleprompter, but can somebody eloquently explain their opinion and why? We find that, I think, it's becoming more difficult in our society to get people to be able to explain what they believe and why, because most people don't know anymore. They just go with the flow. They just follow the rest of the sheeple or the cattle in line.
You're right. Well, most people don't have their own little markers or, their lane, their path marked out. They don't know. The lines have been so blurred by the powers that shouldn't be that people don't know themselves anymore. They really don't.
Or they're afraid to talk about it because if they go down the rabbit hole of personal experience or they go down the rabbit hole of unmedicated mental health and mental well-being or emotional well-being, then they really don't know what to do with it. We've become a community and a society of people who no longer think for themselves, but we so easily believe what we're told. And, that can go from how you were raised to the fluoride in the water or to the push for psychotropic drugs to be taken at every little ailment or mental, instability. But as we were talking before the show started, the things that we go through in life they help us really learn what we're made of. They help us when we go through these difficult times completely sober and wide awake, then we know what we're made of. We know that we're stronger. We become stronger as a result of it. And we miss that. Yeah, those sacred rites of passage in life. When we miss those things, we become a completely different thing.
And it's important to have that introspection. You're correct. Because if you don't look back on things, like how are you supposed to learn? Right. If you don't make an error, like Kennedy even said, errors are only mistakes. An error only becomes a mistake if you refuse to correct it. So if you're willing to go back and look at the error you made and say, oh, okay, I get what I did wrong. Little mental note, don't do that again. You know what I mean? Right. It's like common sense you'd think, because that's how we learn from the time we're children. But nobody wants to look at their inner self like that. And by the way, that has a lot to do with health, ladies and gentlemen. Mental health One of the reasons why people have such quote-unquote issues is because they're afraid to look at their inner demons and deal with them. That's why they attack other people. Like, let's say I see a trait in Joni that reminds me of a trait that I don't like about myself. Well, I'm going to attack that trait very passionately. And, some might even say, like, if I was yelling at her or attacking her or whatever, an outsider might say, wow, why are you so, like, passionate about it? Well, that person would be passionate about it because they're projecting their own anger and hatred of that quality about themselves onto that person that reminds them of that quality about themselves, rather than actually deal with that inner demon, and then that whole problem would go away. But we're not taught to deal with that. We're always taught to deal with the symptom, not the problem, Joni.
Right, and look how greatly that applies across the board in our society. With medicine and health, we are in modern medicine, that's what we call it. I don't know how I would consider something, I don't consider it modern. I just consider it sometimes crazy. But we put Band-Aids over bullet holes. We try to treat the symptoms instead of going to the root cause of the illness, which is sometimes emotional, which is sometimes unavoided or of things that you've avoided in your past or issues that you haven't dealt with. That will produce physical illness in your body. I know because I've been there. And, we treat the symptom with drugs instead of treating the root cause with the very things that our body was designed to ingest to be able to help us. We come with a specific design, and I didn't do it. I'm not that intelligent. I'm not that wise. I'm not that smart. I'm not that creative. I wouldn't know how to begin to build a human being, except for I got to carry 3 of them in my belly. That was fun. Well, I was a bodybuilder then. That was the only time I was a bodybuilder ever.
A lot of it, by the way, that's an amazing thing that women can do. Sure. A lot of people don't look at that, but that's actually an amazing thing that females can grow little humans in their bellies and then pop them out.
Can't do it without you, though. Can't do it without you guys.
Well, very true, but I wouldn't want to have to. I wouldn't want your position in that whole thing. I'm glad I'm a dude because you can. We discussed this the last time you were on, and I said glad I'm a dude. That's exactly what I said. But the inner demons and working them out, that really that's one of the root causes, at least in my opinion, of why there's so much quote-unquote mental health issues. I don't really think it's mental health issues. I think it's just people have been programmed to not deal with things. I mean, people are told not to deal with their emotions now. And this goes back like 10, 20 years at least, where, when I was a kid, people were taught, oh, you shouldn't wear your emotions on your sleeve. You should put that away and hold that in. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Right. Well, let's look at the roles. I mean, oh my goodness, we're going to go down the rabbit hole. Creep, 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 'cause I creep. Yeah. Keep it on the... Okay, sorry. I'm going to go TLC 90s there. But when we go down this rabbit hole of mental health and male and female gender roles and what we are taught by society or what society expects us to be and not to be, and you start going back throughout history, you realize that it's a very large problem for a very, very, very long time. Predetermined gender roles are established and not always built in equality or of what's fair and what's right as a human. It's the agricultural age. I learned this from Christopher Ryan, the author of Sex at Dawn. In his book, he was talking about the dawn of agricultural times and how men and women's roles were defined, and we went from hunter-gatherers to men being like controlling and domineering, and like women were looked at as property, that they owned us. And in some ways we still see that. And then you have like feminism, which screws up both men and women because it really boogers things up for guys because they don't know, how do we treat a lady? And then being labeled a lady. Some women don't like that. Some men don't like being called gentlemen. So, I mean, we have all these things that are kind of predetermined for us as we're younger and as we grow up, and how we're supposed to act and how we feel are often two different things. So how do we stay true to ourselves and still explore those emotional places in order for healing to take place? And normal processing,
I discussed this topic a couple of weeks ago, probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago now. I played a quick audio clip. It was about 6.5 minutes. It was the last interview, or a piece of the last interview Russell Means did before he passed away. And he was with his wife. and he was talking about the sacred feminine, and they were talking about traditional gender roles in the Native American community, and they explained that yes, there are specific things that the females do and specific things that the men do, but he broke it down pretty much the way you just did. That there was a time where yes, men were celebrated for them being men, but women were also celebrated for being women. And as you said when we were joking around, when I said, "Oh, I'm glad I'm a dude," it can't be done without the other. Each complements the other. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
And the powers that shouldn't be, the people that control things, that's where all these movements, I hate that word, movements, that's where they all come from.
Right. We're just not, we're not allowed to just kind of be honored as everybody's human. And we are here in these gender roles. Like I'm experiencing this life as a woman. I didn't do that. And some people will disagree with me. You get some new age belief systems that are like, oh, well, it's a part of the script. You planned that all out. I don't know about any of that. I don't know about that, and I'm not going to pretend to know, but I am going to be honest in saying I feel like, I was born and this is my experience, and, I can share my point of view, and, I'm always learning. So the predetermination, women aren't supposed to be angry. Anger is a powerful tool. You can really use anger in a positive way if you channel it correctly and you don't hurt other people. Anger, there's some breakthroughs that I just had. I almost broke my wrist doing it. I almost broke my hand. I was kickboxing the snot out of my Wave Master. And was just really going to it and really working through some emotions, working through some things in my own life, and almost broke my hand doing so because I didn't put any gloves on.
But see, suppressing that anger would have been wrong, and it would have been unnatural. Now, finding a positive way to channel it, it actually becomes almost like therapy for you because it lets you release that anger and let it go. And you're not doing it in a negative way. In your case, you're doing it via exercise. So that's a positive way. The problem is that, when you talk about the New Age thing, that idea of, oh, there can't be any anger or anything like that. You have to suppress your emotions. They're the same way in a lot of ways. Oh, you can't. There's no negative vibes. You can't have anger. You know what? That's suppressing your natural body. Like I used to get pissed off because when I was younger, I had a bit of a temper. As I've gotten older, I've learned to control myself. Anybody that knows me,
proud of you.
I've become a big
I'm gonna
boy.
Be mom.
Yeah, I've become a big boy. My mother would be proud if she were still around. She would be very, very. I know she's looking down at me from wherever she is, going, good job, young Popeye. You did well, But I used to have a very bad temper, and I used to get in a lot of trouble when I was a kid, and I used to not channel my anger in proper fashion, and it was actually thanks to my mother who taught me how to channel my anger properly. But I used to get it used to make me even more angry if I was pissed off for whatever I was pissed off about, and people would make me feel like I was a criminal for wanting to release this anger and get it out and just be done with it, like shed it, like, I need to get it out of me, because everybody experiences that to a different level, and if you hold that in, that's negative. That's so negatively affecting your body. It's not even funny. And people don't realize that. And then you start to get played with mentally, where people are brainwashed into, oh, you can't be angry ever. And then they start to push that on you, and it frustrates you. And I wouldn't give in. I used to fight with people and say, no, I have a right to be pissed off. Like if I want to, express my anger, maybe in some certain circumstances I might have expressed it in not the right manner, but I needed to express it. Now, that's where my mother came in. She taught me how to channel my anger when I was a kid, and how
she did the right parental thing, right?
Exactly. And now look at me. I'm a perfectly fine adult, and I know a lot of these life lessons. A lot of the life lessons my mother and father taught me when I was a kid. I'm 37, and to this day, I still fall back on those things. I mean, my mother only whooped my ass in public once, Joni, and I learned embarrassment. And to this day, I still can remember the feeling of that embarrassment from all the way back when I was like 5, 6 years old. And she didn't beat me, ladies and gentlemen. I know a lot of these younger parents were like, well, you shouldn't hit your kids. I know people don't like hitting kids. I don't think beating children
you shouldn't hit your kids, right?
But once in a while, a smack on the ass needs to be a smack on the ass. Sometimes, maybe not for everybody, but for me, I needed it. Okay, for whatever reason, I was a terror child. Okay.
Yes, and now when you look at the M&Ms, your mind instantly goes back to having your butt swatted.
Oh, dude, I can tell you, Joni,
you stand in the store and you're like, oh my gosh, instant recall.
I'll stand there and like I'll see these kids with their parents, and the mothers are like, oh, just please stop it, and they're kind of ignoring it, and I'm like, man, my mother wouldn't have put up with that. She straightened me out. Granted, my mother wasn't perfect, but she did a pretty decent job of raising me. I'm a decent human being. You know what I mean? I don't hurt anybody. I mind my own business. I'm a good person. I help people out when they need it. Even people I have no clue who the hell they are. I mean, I've pulled people. I talked about this when it happened because I was so amped up the night it happened. I was with my wife probably about a year ago now, maybe a little less. We were driving down the highway, and I watched a car flip over. I pulled over, ran over to the car, and proceeded with another guy to tear the car door open, and we pulled the family. It was a mother and her 3 kids out. Oh. And then I tied her foot up. I tied a tourniquet on her foot. Cops got there, and we bolted. Well, they stayed. I left. I washed my hands, and they gave me a little wipe to clean my hands up, and I left. I didn't even give them my name or nothing. I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. Bye. Okay. Now, I think my mother did a pretty good job raising me because I stopped and helped out. Right now, I brought that up as an example. Not many people would put
their own life on the line for somebody else. But you have some amazing training with that, just from being raised as a child and throughout your life have learned that there are times to step in.
Well, see, that's all it takes is like the proper parenting. That's one of the biggest problems. Everybody goes, oh, it's the schools. It is. It's the schools, it's the teaching, it's the government. But one of the biggest parts of this whole puzzle that is missing is proper parenting. None of this could be going on if the parents were on their game. Because my mother, let me tell you something, she fought the school system. And at the same time, she took my side with them. But at the same time, if I was wrong, she let me know it and she let the whole world know it. My mother taught me humility. She didn't want me to have a huge ego. Again, she wasn't the world's perfect person. I don't think anybody is.
There's no such thing. No, I mean, the day I think I'm the perfect parent, for heaven's sakes, I could never, it's even hard for me to say that in the same sentence because I know that every parent, we all feel like screw ups most of the time. We're always, we should constantly be looking at how can I be better? What can I do more for my child? How can I, fashion our one-on-one time to be, even more tailored to what they want or they need. It's always looking out for the best interest of your child. And you give up yourself a lot to do that. There's a lot of self-sacrifice with that, but I wouldn't have it any other way. There's no other way to be a parent than to be it and always do what's right and what's best for your children. Right. And love them ferociously. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
You're right. You're 100% right. I mean, that's part of the problem with why things are bad the way they are. I mean, not just aside from people not looking into themselves and dealing with that, but the improper parenting, I guess you could call it. And again, a lot of that has to do with how they were raised or how they've been programmed.
It's like how far back does that trickle back? And at what point do people stop and say, because I know I tend to run with more parents who are like, you know what, we were raised dysfunctionally and we are using the therapeutic process, or we are doing everything differently now. We are going to stop a cycle that has taken place in our lives, a cycle of abuse, a cycle of trauma, a cycle of, wrong responses to traumatic or dramatic situations. A lot of the families I know and tend to run with are the ones that are like, nope, we're stopping it so our kids can have a better, more peaceful future. And they can change, we can change how they respond to life and look at it from a different point of view. Because they got tired of the dogma and the constant generation after generation of alcoholism or abuse or whatever they're dealing with in their families.
But that's actually making a change, though. See, that comes from them, again, going back to what we originally started talking about, the introspection, where they went,
right.
I have to sit down and think about my life for a second and analyze
this isn't
things.
working. Yeah, this isn't working. I have to do something differently, you know? So it's really interesting how that works. You know, you were talking about anger, and it's like anger is a great emotion. You can fuel a lot of change. And I think anger is fine. One of my house rules is you have every right to your feelings. You have every right to feel your feelings, no matter how strongly you feel them. They are yours, and you have every right to feel them. But you don't have a right to be cruel, and you don't have a right to hurt people. And that's just something that is well understood in my household.
But that's actually teaching personal responsibility. It's saying, look, you're valid in feeling how you feel, because that's a big part of, like I said, you know, I used to get mad because people would make me feel like I was wrong for how I felt, right?
Oh, yeah, it's like social shaming for reacting normally to a situation.
And that makes the anger worse, because now you're just fueling the fire, which, you know what I mean? So you
want a little gasoline with that?
Right, like you're being smart. You're saying, look, your feelings are totally valid, but it's not okay if you take that emotion that you're feeling and project it on somebody else in the form of hatred or cruelty or being mean or hitting them or whatever. That's not right. Now, see, that will be a life lesson that 30 or 40 years from now, those kids will remember when they're dealing with their significant other or another human being, you know, out in the real world. I mean, that's real parenting, and that's a real important lesson. Joni, I'm going to cut us off because the break is sneaking up. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be back in 3 short, quick minutes. I promise. That's right. Those pills that they give you do nothing at all. That's why you should eat healthy and take some of the advice that you're going to hear tonight. And again, you can look into this. Don't just take what we have to say as gospel. But, you know, look into it more for yourself. I mean, just take 10, 15 minutes and just, you know, have a little bit of introspection into your life. And maybe, just maybe you'll see that I'm right and that Joni's correct and that this will actually benefit you health-wise, especially in a positive way. Not only mental health, but, I mean, honestly, people letting go of a lot of stuff. I was telling Joni off air before we came on. Joni's a friend of mine, so I can tell her things that I would probably normally not say on air. But for the benefit of the listeners out there, I'll share this with you. In my own life, I'm learning to forgive myself for personal mistakes that I've made in my life when I was younger. We all have anger at ourselves. We all harbor a lot of guilt about something here or there that we might have done, or maybe that we feel bad that we did, you know, incorrectly. I mean, we are all our own worst enemy. Nobody can criticize you worse than you can. That's why I laugh when people would say things to me, or even to this day when people say something stupid about me. I'm like, really? That's all you have? I could write you a better list, okay? You're your own worst enemy. You have to learn to love yourself, okay? A lot of people look for love. This is a mistake I used to make, Joni. I used to run around when I was younger, and I used to chase women, right? And I used to try to find women.
Really? You, a boy chasing women with hormones? What, are you kidding me?
Right? And I used to try to chase these women that would, you know, I wanted them to love me, and it was a challenge, I guess, to, you know, but I knew I could do it, and I would, but it was never really what I was looking for, right? It was never really true anything, because I was never at peace with myself. So I wasn't really looking for the right person. And eventually these women, you know, something bad would happen in the relationship because they turned out to not be the type of person that I should have been with to begin with. But I ended up looking in the wrong spots because I wasn't even okay with myself first. I was trying to run, and I didn't even know how to walk. I was still crawling. You know, and here I am trying to run a marathon. Once I went back to point A and I started over again, I realized that I had to learn to love myself. Now, this was years and years and years ago, but even to this very day, I'm still learning from that experience and saying, hey, wow, you know, I did make mistakes here or there, but, you know, here were the circumstances that I was going through, and, you know, give yourself a break. And I find that the more I do that, the stress levels, things that I thought I would never get rid of, guilt, feelings I thought I would never go away. Not that I did anything wrong and, oh my God, you're guilty, you're a prick, Popeye, what did you do? It's not like that, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. Everybody has that personal guilt. And just letting it go, Joni, is like, it's like
breathe.
taking a 50-pound weight off my shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, our body has to process all of our emotions. Oh, I heard that probably 7-8 years ago, and I thought that person was full of it. What are you talking about? Our emotions connected with our physical health? I mean, the Bible didn't say that. That was in my mindset, right? So I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I was a completely different person myself 8 years ago, but I was not willing to ascribe to that concept. And then you start studying all these other cultures around the world who have observed human nature and human health for thousands and thousands of years longer than our culture. And you just look and it makes perfect sense. For instance, we were talking about anger before the break. That stores up in your liver, and your liver is like the cesspool for all the toxins anyway. Everything toxic in your body will pass through your liver. It's also a place where your hormones, it's an important place for your hormones to convert into doing their job into your body. So you have this very important organ that constantly needs certain foods in order to keep itself detoxified and working optimally and working and functioning properly, just like in your car. If you don't change the oil, right? If you don't get a tune-up every once in a while, if you don't drain all of the old fluids and flush them out and put in new, cleaner fluid, then it's not going to work properly and you're not going to get from point A to point B. Our bodies are no different. And because we also have to process these emotions, you have to really take care of your organs, especially if you are experiencing grief. Grief stores up in the lungs. When I first separated and left my abusive marriage, I was grieving and I kept getting this cough and this lung stuff going on. And it wasn't bacterial. I just constantly had this thing. And then when I really started studying, like, why do I keep getting this cough and this thing? Lungs. You grief. I was processing grief. So I was taking things to support my lungs and eating foods that were supportive of the lung stuff. And as I processed that emotion, then my cough went away. And because anger's in your liver, right, you want to make sure you keep things like lemon in your water to make sure that lemon's a gentle liver cleanser. Milk thistle is a really great supplement. It helps increase glutathione in your liver. Glutathione helps your body detox the heavy metals that we encounter from whether it's chemtrails or dental amalgam fillings or heavy metals in our foods or even that are found in vaccines. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get heavy metals into your body, but it does help to increase the production of glutathione that will help escort those things right out of your body. Cinnamon's another great like blood sugar stabilizer. There's a really great product out there called Synergy at thepeopleschemist.com. I love Shane Ellison. He's an organic chemist, used to work for pharmaceutical companies, but he's got this mega great product called Synergy, and you take it and it's got milk thistle and cinnamon, and it just really helps to keep your body in an optimal working state. And it's just little tidbits like that you learn along the way that will help you keep your health, working properly. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your emotional health. It's good for your physical health.
Between the mental, actually, looking into things, and then again taking the proper, I don't want to say ingredients, vitamins, minerals.
Just putting the right nutrients in your body.
Nutrients.
Yeah, the nutrients your body was designed to have. There you go.
Well, see, we've come so far off track from where we're supposed to be, operating with our bodies food-wise. I mean, with other things too, but just food-wise alone. I mean, we don't even really eat real food when you eat anything processed anymore.
We're eating food-like products with so many chemicals and petrochemicals and pesticides and genetically modified that we're eating things that taste like food, that trick our brains into believing that it's food, but it's not food. So then you have to ask yourself, well, what is it? And then you have to ask yourself, let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit further. I love the name of your show, by the way. I can word play with that all day long. Then you say, what is it? And then what is it? And then what is it not? Then you have to ask yourself, okay, if it's not real food, then what is it doing in my body? Because if my body is programmed to process nutrients and process real food, and it knows what to do with those nutrients, and once it breaks down, then does my body know how to break down this non-food that I'm eating? And what is happening to the chemicals in that non-food? And where is it storing up in my body? And what organs and functions in my body is it affecting? And you just keep going down a rabbit hole. And you just keep looking it up and researching and figuring out each and every ingredient in a processed food, what it does to the body. And you're like, God, that's too complicated for me. Shit, I got to eat real food. It's just, my grandparents used to call it food, but now we have to label it organic because there has to be a differentiation between what we're putting into our bodies now because food became so screwed up. And I've got, Alexandra Jameson's, I don't know if you remember the documentary Super Size Me. Do you remember that documentary, Morgan Spurlock?
Disturbing.
Yeah, well, Alex Jameson, his girlfriend in the movie, she's a friend of mine, and she's out to fix food, and she's got it's the 10-year anniversary right now going on of the Super Size Me documentary. It's been 10 years already, and she's holding this huge food summit starting next week. You can sign up for free, and I'll give you the link to post Popeye on wherever you can post it in the chat room and on your website and stuff, so people can sign up and learn about fixing food. But she's definitely on a mission to do that because this is the problem what we're experiencing. We don't know really what happens to our bodies or to the ingredients or chemicals that are found in food. We're not sure what happens to us, but we know we're becoming sicker as a nation. We know that we are no longer able to live as healthy and high quality of a life. So many people are on pharmaceuticals. So many people were dealing with obesity. We're dealing with, autoimmune diseases in children. At 8 years old, there's no 8-year-old child that should have rheumatoid arthritis. Look at the cancers that we're experiencing. Look at the rates of autism and ADHD and spectrum disorders. I mean, it's just across the board. It's the first generation of children now that are not expected to outlive their parents. That's unacceptable to me. I didn't have children, so they, so that their peers could be more sick than I'll ever be.
I have to be quite honest with you. This is one of the things. I mean, but my wife and I have several reasons for not having kids because people always ask me why I don't have kids. But this is one of the reasons I don't have kids. Right, and people have said, well, you future generations. Okay, like I decided with my wife, and there were a couple health reasons too, but we decided that it wouldn't be worth it, really any of the risks right now. Not until we can, maybe in the future, if we could change things around,
or move or leave the country, right? And
yeah, but where are you going to go though? That's the other thing. A lot of people always say that they say we can leave the country, but where are you going to go? Because if the United States falls to this dark New World Order agenda that they have planned, then there's nothing to stop it from going wherever. I mean, I'm not saying that we're the superheroes, but we're kind of like this dam. And once it breaks, then it's on for the rest of the world. So you could be hiding in Costa Rica or some island somewhere. It does not matter. It'll come to your front door. And when it does, what are you going to do? Because you're not going to have what at least the opportunity that you had here to make a stand. You're going to have less of a chance. So I think running isn't the answer. I mean, and besides, they spray everywhere. So it doesn't matter really, like Mike Murphy from What and Why in the World Are They Spraying? He'll go out to Hawaii to an organic farm that, he knows people that live out there and his friends have out there. And he'll go out to this organic farm where they don't use any pesticides. Everything's organically grown. And yet there's, still heavy metals in the dirt and in the soil. Well, how the hell did that get there? Well, it must be those chemtrails that they don't spray in the sky.
Well, that I never used to believe in. Oh my gosh, I was like, no, that's just exhaust. And then I started thinking back, and you know what really made it real to me was my childhood memories. Because I didn't have any memories of those white streaky things in the sky when I was a kid. My kids used to think those were clouds. And I'm like, clouds are not shaped like that. Just basics here. I'm not a scientist, but just, thinking about it. And I thought, I don't ever recall seeing those.
When I was a kid, I was probably in like the late 90s is when I
Yeah, a little youngin.
I started noticing it. I was, listen to me, kid. I was in my early 20s. That's when I noticed that something was up. I was like, what's up with that? Same thing. The thought just hit my head one day, and I think it was while I was either driving and staring up at the sky, or not staring up, but like I could see it in the horizon, or I was, maybe out having a cigarette somewhere and I was staring up at the sky. But something clicked in my brain where it just didn't make sense that crap hung out in the sky for as long as it does. And now the one guy, the geoengineer, I can't remember his name, or the guy who wrote the book that advocates for geoengineering, he was on the fake news show on Comedy Central, not the Daily Show, the other one, Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
And Colbert actually, Colbert, whatever, however the hell he pronounced his name.
No, you were right, you were correct.
Yeah, I actually pronounce it wrong like 60% of the time. So
yeah, I started to pronounce it wrong. I had to be corrected by a friend. Yeah.
Yeah, he actually took him to task somewhat, and I don't know if it if it was scripted or not, but he did somewhat take him to task. He's like over the proposals of what they want to do and what they are doing, and he even admitted that they're spraying all this crap in the sky. That's not healthy for us. And then people always say to me when they don't want to believe it, well, Popeye, if they were doing that, it would affect them too. And to them, I always answer with this. Well, back in the 40s, when the United States lit off the first atomic weapon here, mind you, the Nazis let off one before we did, but that's a whole different story. When the scientists that were involved in the test here in New Mexico lit it off, more than 50% of them were convinced they were going to destroy the world in one form or another because of the bomb. Okay? Some of them thought it was going to start a chain reaction to ignite all the atmosphere. Others thought it was going to crack the Earth in half. The point is, more than half of them believe they're actually going to end all life on the planet, and they still push that red button. Okay?
The wrong kids got the wrong toy. The wrong kids got the big boy toys.
Right, exactly. From a mom's perspective, I love it.
Slap that wrist. Don't you touch that red button, mister. That just drives me nuts. You gave the wrong kid the big boy toys. Oh, my gosh.
Seriously, they had a test for who was responsible enough to control it, and then everybody that failed got control of it.
Yeah. It's like what Frankenstein killed Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, the monster killed Frankenstein, and then now he's running loose.
Yeah. Rawr! They're everywhere, and it's you have to have some kind of humor with it. You have to be able to laugh, because this life cycle that you're in is not forever. I don't know what we're going to experience, but you have to believe life on Earth. It's look at how many people have lived for hundreds of thousands of years before us. Didn't we all at one point? Didn't everybody experience some amount of evil from the evildoers? Look at the Romans. Look at the Crusades. Look at history repeating itself, human nature repeating itself as it will.
Now, just imagine if, those tyrants of yore used to, that used to run around and do horrific things, impale them on spikes like Vlad the Impaler, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Horrific thing. Now, what they did was horrific, and people go, "Oh, we don't do things like that anymore." Oh, contraire, mon frere, we still do horrific things. But can you imagine if they had the technology that our tyrants of today had? Oof.
Yeah. Who knows if the world would even be here?
Well,
we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
We're looking at that, redo, tyranny 2.0. That's what you're seeing, and it's scary when you actually look at how. Sometimes it is when you look at how dumbed down the population is. We are turning the tide. That doesn't get said enough. But if you look outside, there are still a lot of stupid people. The little kid from that Sixth Sense movie? I see dead people. When I walk around, I look at my wife, I'm like, I see stupid people. Seriously. I just can't stand it.
Oh, it is. It's yeah, you get that sometimes. I just try to look at it more like if I can just me and mine can survive, I think I'm okay. If I can just keep doing what we're doing and we can survive this thing called life, then and we're all still in one piece before it's all said and done, then and that's the thing, you gotta be responsible for yourself first. And that's I love Robert Scott Bell when he talks about take what did he say? The power to heal is yours. And then my little tagline on my show is take charge of your health and healing all from home, because the decision starts with you. Whether you want to, respond to that thing in life that calls you to this greater thing that you're supposed to be or do. Most people aren't living their passions anymore. They're just like running the rat race. And you have to make that decision that you're not going to do it or that you are. And if you are, then there's really not a whole lot you can do to complain, because the power to change your life is within you. And that's all you can really do. I mean, change what you can.
Well, it's just like I sign off at the end of every show with the solutions to our problems are an inside job.
Yes.
Because they are, right? Like you can't look to, I don't want anybody to look to me. I don't want anybody to look to you or Robert Scott Bell or anybody else to solve their problems. You could listen to the shows and learn from us, but don't ever look to any one of us or anybody else out there to be your superhero. You're your own superhero. And as soon as you realize that, your whole life will start to change. And like the law of correspondence says, as above, so below, right. In the micro will be in the macro. Well, there you have it. You will start to change the world around you just because you changed your inner self. But you can't change the world around you for the good until you actually deal with your own stuff. I mean, I know this sounds all like, oh, we're the psychology 101, Popeye, but no, this is like the exact antithesis of what society and people are taught today. So people need to hear this.
Right. We have to learn, self-empowerment. Like you were even talking about self-love. You can't look to everything else to fulfill you. You have to find that first within yourself. And it's a journey. This is such a journey. I would not have normally probably talked like this. I mean, prior to me having a radio show, I didn't have this belief system. I wasn't able to grow. I was not in a place mentally, emotionally, or physically that was conducive to growth. In fact, it was the opposite. And something within me was like, you have to get out now, or you'll never have that freedom that you feel like, the freedom that you need, the health that you need, the role modeling of healthy for your children. My biggest fear was just not being able to live life to the fullest and being stuck in the same situation that I was in. And, I believe that me getting the radio show when I did was very pivotal in me getting my voice back in my life and being able to realize that life could be a very different thing. And at least a healthier, more enjoyable thing. So it's really neat when you wake up and you start to say, okay, I'm the only one that can change this. I don't like it. I'm the only one that can change my circumstances. No matter, it's baby steps. You can decide to put the McDonald's down and go get real fast food, like organic fruits or vegetables. Does your body like it? No, but it only takes 2 weeks to change your taste buds. You can make that choice. You can choose differently. And once you do, then it can become a habit. And then once it becomes a habit, then you start changing how you feel. Then once you change how you feel, then your whole perspective in the world is different. And then you start embracing other protocols and other things. It's a trickle effect.
I agree.
That's how we change communities, and that's how it just it starts with you.
I like that. That's a great term for it. It's the trickle effect. It really is. I mean,
like dominoes,
Well, they love to use the politicians and the powers that shouldn't be love to use that for the economics or other crap. But in reality, that really is the trickle effect of awakening. Because when you start to realize this stuff, then you start to, like I said, you start to change yourself, and then everything in your life. Just, it's not going to be hunky-dory. Don't get me wrong. Unicorns aren't going to appear out of the closet that fart rainbows and pots. Are you kidding? Yeah, I know.
Whose house are you talking about? That happens here all the time.
And pots of gold and leopards are at the bottom of the rainbow, right?
Lucky Charms dude, he's my guy.
Right. I mean, that's not, obviously that's not going to happen, but your life will change for the better. Well, maybe
Day's coming up. I might get a little leprechaun.
Hey, you never know. Maybe it could happen. Somebody could win the lottery. I mean, just just changing your whole outlook does change your life. I say all the time, one of the best ways you could change your outlook, the way you feel about yourself. A lot of people don't do this enough. Look in the mirror for 5 minutes when you wake up in the morning, stare yourself in the eyes, which most people can't do, and talk to yourself and tell yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, it's okay, I love you, and you know what? You've made mistakes in the past, but I forgive you. Let's move on. Today's going to be a great day. No matter what, it doesn't matter if it's raining outside or my boss is a dick. You know what? I'm a good person and I'm going to make the best of today. Even if it's a bite in the ass to do so, do it. Because after a couple weeks of doing that, it won't be so much of a chore anymore. And then you might not even need to say it out loud. I still say it once in a while to myself. If I'm beaten up on myself, I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'll still remind myself, cut yourself some slack. You have to. It's not, oh, what are you, abnormal? You talk to yourself? No, you have to actually look yourself in the eyes. Okay, most people can't do that. Most people can't even look themselves in the mirror. They'll give themselves a passing glance. They'll stare at their ass, or they'll look at their breasts, or if they're a female, or maybe if they're a guy, they'll check their pecs out, or their stomach, or their arms. But they won't stare themselves in the eyes, because the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they're too scared to actually see what's in there.
That's one of my favorite sayings. And I really am an intense eye contact person. So I don't like making people feel like intimidated, but sometimes they get the wrong idea about it too. They think like I'm staring at them, like I'm interested. No, that's not why. I want to see what you're about. And I don't like it when I can't see people's eyes sometimes. It frustrates me. I'm like, take your sunglasses off. Let me see you for a minute.
I've done that. I've left my sunglasses on, but I agree with you. Like I look at people in the eyes when I talk to them, and sometimes you can tell it makes people uncomfortable. They look away, like they'll sit down at the floor while they're talking to you.
Right.
My mother always taught me you look someone in the eyes. My father, same thing. You look somebody in the eyes when you talk to them.
Handshakes are like that too, right? Those little limp-wristed handshakes, can't stand it.
Oh no, my father told me you're not supposed to shake hands like a wet noodle.
Right.
You shake with a firm grip. You don't have to break the person's hand, but shake like a man. You know what I mean? Don't be limp-wristed. Just give him a good. I might take my father. I'm kidding. I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but no, you're right. Yes, my firm handshake. Just that stuff like that's not taught anymore. By the way, either.
Right.
Just like women aren't taught how to change tires anymore by their fathers, because unfortunately their fathers don't know how to change tires. Although when I was when I used to work for AAA, and I'll throw this out there, and then we're going to break really quick. When we come back, hour number 2, we're going to get into a few other topics. But
yes, and I'm going to tell you how to be happy in an event that that you can come to learn things we were talking about.
That's right. I want to plug that before I forget.
So AAA.
Yes, when I was I used to tow for AAA, and long story short, more women knew how to change tires than men, and that's because back in the day, the dads used to actually sit with the girls when they got their licenses and teach them how to change the tire, change the oil, check the tire pressure, do all that stuff. Nowadays, the fathers don't even know how to do that. With that, we're going to break. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We will be back. Hour number 2 with Joni Abbott. You won't want to miss it, so stay here. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is March 5th, 2014. Tonight I am hanging out with my good friend and fellow radio show host, plus, I would say, Wonder Woman extraordinaire, Miss Joni Abbott. Joni, welcome back for hour number 2, dear.
Thank you, darling. Thank you so much. You always have the greatest introduction. I do have blue eyes like Linda Carter, but I don't know that I could look as wonderful as she does in her Wonder Woman outfit. We'll see. I'll finish losing the rest of the weight, and we'll see if I can squeeze into something like that someday. Do you have the wristbands? Do you clink them together and you're like... I wish. I'm not that cool. I wish I were. But
well, we here at Down the Rabbit Hole and Truth Frequency Radio think you're that cool.
If I were that cool, I would be like clinking, and I'd be down in like Florida on a beach for a few days just to get out of the nasty Midwest and all of the millions of snow. It's like snowmageddon. It's long. We've had 3 to 5 inches every week for a long, long time now.
Yeah, all I can say is this winter reminded me of why I moved to Florida.
I bet.
Just
trust me.
Just saying.
We all want to be snowbirds in your backyard. Don't worry. if Calgon were real, we'd all be there.
Well,
okay?
We'll make the Federal Jack compound. Everybody can come down.
Sure.
Then we'll get labeled a cult, and I'm sure they'll just rate it like
They'll
Waco.
bomb us. Yeah, it'll be like Waco. No worries.
I say that sarcastically, but that's probably what would happen if there was ever like a quote unquote truther compound. Anyway. I want to plug this before we forget, because I know there's a ton of other things I want to get into, including Cannabis and Sierra Riddle and her son Landon. Hungry for Health Organic Gala. What is that? What's going on there, and how can people attend it, or if not physically, is there going to be a live stream? And go.
Okay, so the Organic Gala, the Hungry for Health Organic Gala, is going to take place April 3rd through the 5th in Branson, Missouri. It's actually going to be at Lodge of the Ozarks. It's a really beautiful location, and it's pretty much the health event of the year. So if you want to come learn about cancer cures, people, and talk with people and speakers who have actually cured their cancer using natural health food as medicine, and some nutritional supplements, they will talk and tell you all about their story. It is a black tie dinner, also a silent auction as well. And you can go to livehappybepure.com, livehappybepure.com to get your tickets. It is just fantastic. I know the founder of this event, Organic Guru Lynette Pate, and she's just been nothing shy of phenomenal. In my life, she's just always the essence of absolute purity, integrity, will not settle for anything less than non-toxic anything. And she has just been all over the place. I started out with her sponsoring her Feel for the Body bike tours. And she would travel on bike and have a support vehicle and just have banners all over the place and have sponsors. And she would ride her bike and raise awareness and stop by organic farms and stop by health food stores and try to help people sign the petition for GMO labeling, trying to help people understand why it's important that we label our foods with the GMO label and help people understand what it is. So she did this last year, and there's going to be all kinds of amazing people and speakers there. If you're suffering from cancer or any autoimmune disease or long-term health disease, if you're being told that it's untreatable, it's life-threatening, it's not curable, please give this a try. Please consider coming and talking to some of the health experts that are going to be there. Keynote speaker is Dr. Patrick Vickers. He's the founder of the Gerson Treatment Clinic in Baja, Mexico. Another featured speaker is going to be Bob Wright. He's the author of Killing Cancer, Not People, and also the founder of the newest wellness center in Washington State. Other people are going to speak. Lynette Guru, of course, Lynette Marie. She's going to be speaking. She's written several books, Feel for the Body being one of them. And she's the creator of this event. Chris Wark of Chris Beat Cancer. He was on Ricky Lake featured. He beat his own colon cancer, I believe at like 26, 27 years old. And we've been friends, but I've not had a chance to meet him yet. So this is going to be really exciting to be able to meet him and hear his story in person. And then I get to be the co-mistress. I'm like, ooh, that has a nice little ring to it. Co-mistress. What does that mean exactly? Am I a hoe? What is that? No. It's called guest co-mistress of ceremony. And other words, I'm emceeing the event. And so I get to, introduce a lot of these people and talk with everyone and just be the person that I am and with a microphone. It comes very naturally to me. And then I'm going to be joined by Matt Lord, who is the creator. He's an opera singer. He's the creator of something called the Three Redneck Tenors. And I hear they're fantastic performers. He's also a stand-up comedian. So I've got to be on my feet there that night, because I'm sure he's going to make things really funny and interesting. So we are going to be he's the guest co-master and I'm the co-mistress. And that's my regal title for those few days.
And how many days is it? 2-3 days in total?
Yeah, April 3rd through the 5th. So it's about, 2-3 days.
Like 2.5 days or 2 nights, 3 days.
Yeah. There's going to be a 3-course fine dining organic meal. It's all farm to fork, right? So everything is organic. Her son, Cody Pate, he has studied, in France, and he's got it all down. So he's going to be using all local and organic farmers food. Again, it's a black tie event. So I'm like really busting up the kickboxing to make sure I squeeze into my evening gown. And there's going to be a gift bag at every table. There's going to be raffle tickets. Again, it's only $80 per person. So if you go to livehappybepure.com, RSVP your plate, tell us what you want and just come and enjoy. We're going to have a lot of performers there, lots of vendors. So you can, look at all the latest products in natural health. And then all of the speakers are just it's phenomenal. I've never spent this little amount of money, like $80 for a ticket to go to a weekend where there's so much information. It's usually more expensive than that. So we are really happy to, have any vendors, come on board here last minute before the event and in less than a month. So go to livehappybepure.com and, get your spot reserved. And I promise you will not be disappointed. These are some of my most favorite people ever. Ian Jacklin is going to be there as well. He's from icurecancer.com. Ian is just an absolute buddy. I got to meet him at a Health Freedom Expo in Long Beach last year, and he really busts his butt to bring you the latest information on the latest cancer cures. And the I in icurecancer.com, he wants people to realize I is the you. You're empowered. It's you have to be empowered. You can cure cancer. You can cure your own body, and you can actually prevent it. Really, prevention is what we have to start thinking about. Most of the way that we treat health today is reactionary. We wait till shit hits the fan before we actually do something about it. Well, why wait? Why not just prevent it in the first place? Do your best to prevent it. Not everything in life is as easy and preventable. Unforeseen accidents, not preventable.
Well, some of the best things in life are actually you have to fight for them, right?
Right.
People become lazy, Joni. People don't want to. People just want that 15-second, give me a pill and make it all better,
Right. I know it, and that is where the lack of empowerment comes from. Because if you don't take charge and and be empowered within yourself, then somebody's going to take that for you. Somebody's going to do it for you if you don't do it for yourself. So,
and that's why I preach, exactly the same type of thing you preach: personal responsibility, because that puts an end to that. Everybody goes, "What's the solution to stopping this?" Personal responsibility. If everybody took personal responsibility, they wouldn't be able to control you. They wouldn't.
Right.
Their control they'd become irrelevant in the blink of an eye. Poof, gone. We're gonna come get you. With who? Everybody thinks you're a bunch of douchebags. It's like you 3 of you versus bazillions of us. F off. That's how quickly things would change. But it's all a mindset. But that's why they have to constantly bombard everybody with "you're powerless, you're powerless, you need us, you need us." They convince everybody that you need these people in suits and costumes and everything else, and you don't.
Right.
And it's ridiculous, and that's a big part of the war on drugs too. That's one of the illusions of the war on drugs is they don't want you to realize that and they being the powers that shouldn't be, and whoever you could put big pharma and all these other different companies in there, but like with cannabis alone, they don't want you to see how cannabis itself could benefit you in a ton of ways. So they bombard you with quite the opposite. Even in today's day and age where you have Sanjay Gupta going on CNN, and I disagree with that guy on like 3/4 of what he talks about.
A lot of things,
right.
Yes.
And he's like, really, cannabis is great.
He stepped up to the batting cage on this one. I'm very happy that he has done that, and I'm very happy that he has used his level of celebrity or his popularity and platform to speak out about this. And it's funny you should bring up cannabis and CNN and Sanjay Gupta, and that just perfectly segues into what I'm going to be speaking about at this event. Actually, Ian Jacklin from icurecancer.com, that's his first documentary. I met him, and I'm going to be in his second documentary that he's making right now, I Cure Cancer 2. And he is the first guy that introduced me to the idea that cannabis could cure cancer. And I'm like, oh my God, if that were true, every pot smoker I know would be not having cancer. And then I started thinking about, wait a minute, I don't know a pot smoker that has cancer. And then I'm like, I've never been comfortable with drugs. Anything that had anything to do with drugs, I'm not comfortable. I've never been a user. I've never been someone, like, it's not for me. I didn't like feeling like I would lose any amount of sobriety or control. I didn't like that feeling. And so for him to tell me, and for the minute he started telling me about cannabis, and I started thinking about like essential oils. Well, those come from plants, and I use those, those come from plants. Well, why wouldn't people use, the herbs of the land and the things that God gave us to heal our bodies with? Well, okay, that makes sense. But then it was like, it started coming down the pike. I started getting all kinds of research coming my way and people sending me information. And I thought, okay, I'm going to have to take a look at this. I have to take a second look at this thing called cannabis, because whether it makes me uncomfortable or not, it's a natural substance, it's a plant, and it only makes sense that it might have some benefit medicinally. And that's what everybody has been touting for thousands and thousands of years. And so then you have to study then the war on drugs, and you go down the rabbit hole, right? Oh, time to do some research. And Ian just kept telling me, Joni, I'm meeting these people and they're healing their bodies of cancer. And I'm like, so I had to have him explain to me. Well, one of the things that I found was that we actually have something called an endocannabinoid system in our body, meaning that our body actually has receptors that are designed to receive the medicine and the medicinal properties that are in that plant. Like, it just floored me to think that we have an entire system in our body designed to respond to this plant. And this plant is illegal in most places. And it's really becoming popular in other states. And I really foresee the future of this country economically being spared by the legalization of hemp industrially and of, cannabis, marijuana. That's just kind of my guess. But so Ian, introduced me to this concept. Well, then I get a phone call because of my show, Homegrown Health. And I really am very strong and outspoken about parental rights. It's a media platform that I can give parents a voice to. If they're experiencing medical kidnapping with their children, or they're experiencing a type of infringement on their constitutional parental rights, the least thing I feel like I can do, especially if everything's legit after I check them out, is give them a platform to be able to tell their story and see if we can't help them somehow. And I got a call about Sierra and Landon Riddle. Landon is a 3-year-old little guy who has been diagnosed with T-cell ALL, which is a leukemia. It's a very common leukemia in children today, unfortunately. And he nearly died twice from chemotherapy. And his mom started doing research, and she's just like, no parent wants to lose their child. No parent wants to, watch their child suffer through really harsh chemical treatments, radiation, surgery, chemotherapy. And this is after I'd already presented on the Jay Matthews story, where his daughter was medically kidnapped and still is right now. And she has lost her arm. The cancer has come back. I mean, it's just been a disgrace and an absolute atrocity to sit back and watch what has happened and what's transpired with no help. There is not a lawyer out there who can help. And this is what, the system is broken. The system is broken when lawyers cannot help families. Then I covered the Sarah Hirschberger case, the Amish little girl, it's featured on ABC. The lawyer Maurice Thompson. I did a 2-hour show on the Robert Scott Bell Show about parental rights and about alternative cancer treatments. CutPoisonBurn.com is a really great movie, a really great documentary. I'm friends with the Navarro family. They're the family featured in that film. And I had Donna Navarro on my show to talk about her experience. Because if we don't start helping parents understand that in this reactionary mindset, you lose rights to your children. When you have to have a pissing contest between the institutions that be, when they say this is the standard of care of treatment for your child, if you disagree with them, you can and most likely will lose your rights to your child, and you do not have the right then to treat them alternatively and humanely with food as medicine, which has been proven over and over again to shrink cancer tumors. When you bring the body in its balance, when you bring body into from an acidic state into a pH balanced state, cancer starts to go away and sickness can't thrive. Why this is not being recognized is an entirely different show. It's an entirely different political, finely, tightly woven web.
Starts with the Rockefeller family.
Absolutely. It goes way back. And the documentary Cut, Poison, Burn does a really great job of showing you the ins and outs of it and where it started and how parents can lose their rights to their child and how chemo can be forced. And all of these parents have gone out of their way to do what's in the best interests of their children. I mean, we're talking $12,000 to $15,000, $20,000 a month therapies. They're cashing in 401ks, traveling all over the United States to get humane treatments for their kids so they don't have to make the decision to lop off arms and organs. So they don't have to make the decision to let's freeze ovaries because the chemotherapy that we have chosen for your daughter, some of which on the package insert says not intended for use in pediatrics, but that doesn't seem to matter or get brought up in court. You know, parents should be screaming for their rights to be preserved, and we're, more worried about keeping up with the Kardashians. I mean, you were getting a little riled earlier. Now I'm starting to get riled because our children are the most precious thing that we can be entrusted with. Just absolutely the most precious little gifts that we could ever have. And the thought then of something infiltrating their life. A sickness is bad enough, but then something to infiltrate their life that's going to make the quality of their life that of suffering and pain and screaming. It's unbearable. It's unbearable. It's unbearable for them, and it's unbearable for parents. And then to be duped and to believe that this is the only way of treatment for them is nonsense. There have been cancer cures for years and years and years. It's just not acknowledged. So then you have to go down the rabbit hole and start looking at why is there, these American Cancer Societies and the, agenda that they have. Why do we race and run for the cure when you got to run from their cures? If anything, I will not support Susan G. Komen for nothing. I will not buy anything with the pink ribbon because I've had too many friends survive breast cancer on their own using natural treatments. And I've had some that have died too, but you know what? They died on their own terms. They didn't want chemo, and they did the best that they could, and they lived, and their quality of their life was a whole lot longer. And they lived a whole lot longer than they would have had they done the other treatments.
My mother had cancer, and she died of lung cancer at 55, and when they gave her chemo, it actually did more harm than good. And I had seen her a year previously because I was deployed. So when you're in the military, you
Right.
don't see your family as much. But I'd seen her a year before. My mother was like Crystal Gale. She had long black hair that went down to about her ass. And next time I saw her hair was about a half an inch short, and it was gray. And they had to shave her head and the reason why it was like that was because she told me, she said, I had to shave my head because all of my hair fell out from the chemo that they gave her. And it didn't do anything because when I saw her with her shaved head, she also had a pump going into her chest and a pump going into her lungs.
Yeah.
And it was removing all this yellow liquid crap because she had, congestive heart failure, which is the fluid buildup on the chest, which compresses the heart and, stops it from beating. She almost died before I had gotten home to see her. And then they were pumping her out, and then they were pumping her lungs out, and it was all this nasty fluid. And the doctor's like, "Well, that's pretty much the cancer that's inside of her. It's that's what we're pumping out of her." And I after she passed away about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, and I remember saying to my family, I said, "Well, where's the American Cancer Society? Where are all these people?" Because they, after she died, people were like, "Oh, you should get a pink ribbon. You should wear a pink ribbon in your mother's memory." And I said, "For what? Why should I wear a pink ribbon in her memory?" None of these people came to help her out. She died in a hospital bed alone. Well, not alone. We were all around her, but without their help at the age of 55 years old. She should still be alive to this day. She died way too young. And for what? For what? None of these people ever did anything. And that's when I started actually looking into cancer. That, and her doctor made this weird comment to me, which to this day, every time I tell people this, some people say, "Oh, well, that's kind of creepy considering some of the stuff like with the SV40 virus," and other people think it's just bunk. But he made a comment that her cancer was a rare airborne thing, or some rare airborne pathogen or something is what caused it. And because we always assumed it came from smoking. And I don't know if he was being half serious or sarcastic, but he seemed to be very serious. And it wasn't like I was 15 or 16 and, well, maybe you took it the wrong way, Popeye. I was 27 years old at the time. I'm pretty sure I was well aware of what was going on. I'm the one that actually, took care of my mother's burial preparations and her cremation. So I'm pretty sure I could understand what the hell the doctor was saying. So it piqued my interest, and I after she passed away, I looked into cancer more because again, my first thing was everybody's like, oh, the pink ribbon, you should wear the pink ribbon. So where the hell were these people? They get all these millions and bazillions of dollars, and yet my mother died. The best they could do was charge my mother $6,000, by the way, and that was because she had insurance. $6,000 a shot for this radioactive crap which they gave her, which made her hair fall out. It weakened her body, weakened her immune system, and she ended up dying sooner than she should have, at least in my opinion. A lot of people were like, oh, the cancer was too far gone. Bullshit. I'm sure the chemo didn't help.
Well, anytime you put toxic, poisonous chemicals into your body and you destroy your immune system. I mean, this is the one thing that I think I just don't understand. I think all of medicine, I think we need to wipe the slate clean in a lot of ways. And I'm not talking about emergency medicine and awesome technologies that we have with that. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cancer care, general approach to the human body. When we look at basic anatomy and physiology, which it's by my nightstand, I love to learn about it. And you look at the basic function of the human body and your immune system, for instance. The immune system was given to us. It was designed, built, made. We have it for a reason, and that is to defend illness, to keep illness away, to keep our health up, to be strong, to be healthy, to, protect us. And when you take the one thing that's given us to protect us from illness away, don't you think that's kind of like breeding grounds for more illness? How can you it's like taking all of the army away and then getting attacked, or having the enemy prevalent and having the enemy of your body. We have this like kill 'em all mentality. And again, that's that reactionary thing. Okay, you have cancer in your body. We're going to nuke it. Well, guess what? Nukes aren't the answer. They've never been the answer. And nuking your body isn't the answer. How about finding out what's causing the cancer, or going to the root cause of the cancer and doing and increasing your body's ability to get rid of it? How about checking the pH? These things are just normal things in the natural health industry. They're no-brainers. When you start, we have to almost, in order to treat ourselves with modern medicine the way that they want us to, especially with cancer, it's like you have to almost convince yourself that the body doesn't do what it's designed to do, and that you don't have these operating systems in your body the way that they were meant to be operated, and the way they're designed to operate and function. You almost have to like trick yourself that isn't what their job, that they're not doing the job they're supposed to do, and in order to have this kind of severe, extreme reactionary thing. And that's where and the cannabis oil comes in. So we have this endocannabinoid system in our body that reacts to both CBD and THC. THC is the psychoreactive chemical compound in marijuana, in cannabis, and CBD is cannabidiol, which is the anti-inflammatory. And there are so many very healthy benefits that I can't even name or pronounce that go along with this. I'm still learning, so I'm not even doing this justice. I have friends that have just totally taken this on, and they are like whiz at being able to name every single last medical function of this plant. And there are so many different varieties of this plant that can be used to help cure and help people function better. Anything from PTSD to seizures in kids, these children with autism, and children who have epilepsy. They're having 200 violent grand mal seizures a day, and they go down to like having only one per week. That's huge. That's huge for the child and for the parent. And that's why this push for legalization, and that's why it's becoming such a hot topic. That's why, you're seeing more about it in the news, and more legislators jumping on board to help support these bills and to support this legislation to help legalize it. It's amazing what it's doing. And, I wouldn't ever call one thing a silver bullet or a magic bullet, but this covers a lot of ground when it concerns medical ailments and illnesses. So I'm very excited to, talk about Sierra and Landon's story, because Landon, with this T-cell ALL leukemia, he almost died because of both the chemotherapy and the steroid use that they have in the standard of care. He lost a lot of weight. He got very, very ill and almost died twice. And so his mom, being the mama bear that she is, and his grandma, he has a wonderful family, they started researching, and they found cannabis oil. And they started giving it to him, and his cancer started to go away. And he started to gain weight again. And so they decided to move to Colorado, where this was legal, so they could get it from their dispensary.
They shouldn't have had to move to a separate state, but that's a side issue. I'm going to cut us off because the break is sneaking up. Yeah, on the other side, I want to continue this because this story is very powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I don't have cable TV or anything like that, so I'm not really privy to any of the commercials that are on television nowadays, but I do have Netflix, and my wife has access. We don't have it ourselves. I won't pay for it, but my wife has access to one of her family members' Hulu accounts, whatever you want to call it. So she goes on there once in a while to watch one or two things. And I've seen commercials for this rheumatoid arthritis thing. Like, you know, I'll be walking through the room, and she sees this commercial the other day, and she's like, "Hey, did you see this?" So she points it out to me, and I'm watching it, and it's this commercial for rheumatoid arthritis. And one of the side effects, it goes from like, you know, irritable stomach, you know, could even cause irritable bowel syndrome, which in and of itself is bad enough, right? Could cause, you know, headache, dizziness, blah, 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 you know, high blood pressure, you know. And then it jumps from there to cancer. So you're going to take a medication to help you with inflammation and pain from rheumatoid arthritis, but the side effect could be cancer. I mean, that's the new side effect in some of these pharmaceutical drugs. It's not even like sudden death or high blood pressure or liver problems, which I'm...
Or 5-hour erections.
Right, or, you know, like priapism, a 5-hour hard-on. No, you don't have to worry about that anymore. No, now you just develop cancer from medication. So it makes me wonder how many more of these medications that have been out for years could have had this side effect as well, and that was just erased from it. Now, you know, maybe now they're saying it because there's such a high rate of cancer. I mean, they just found another one of these medications. I think it was, I don't remember if it was I think it was an anti-anxiety medication or antipsychotic, whatever, one of those, you know, mood-altering medications, and the side effect is cancer. I mean, that's okay, I guess. Hey, you know, you can't smoke pot and you can't ingest it. We have to take the high out of it. That's the other thing. Why is there this push to take like one certain strain and only make that acceptable and only for use for certain people, and that in very narrow, limited scope? Like, obviously you see it works. Why would you do that? Well, because we have to, Popeye. We have to control everything.
So they don't look like hypocrites for the war on drugs, and all the people who spent time in jail for very little amounts of marijuana don't, you know, decide to rebel or something. I don't know. Everything they do has got to be some form of cover up. They have to cover their ear, you know.
It just, I think you actually hit the nail on the head right there, or at least that's a huge part of it, is they have to do, in a lot of places, especially the states that might have been a lot harsher on cannabis users, they have to do things slowly because that, you know, there's always some scumbag attorney in the background going, no, we can't do it that fast because that'll admit guilt and then we could
Right, exactly. Everything's going to have to slowly work its way up to public acceptance. Everything's a PR campaign. You got to remember they still have all of those barriers to cross over through. These people are master marketers. If they can sell fluoride and they can sell psychotropic drugs that will make people more suicidal, and if you will shoot people, you know, all the school shootings, the people who did those are all on, they were either on or starting to wean themselves off of psychotropic medications. These things are very dangerous, and if they can sell that lie, they're the master marketers. I give them credit for that much. If they can sell that lie to the general public, then in order to, you know, switch back and say, oh, wait a minute, if they have to do that very slowly.
Well, yeah, it's like, you know, just like everything else, the frogs in the pot. Well, even with things like this, they have to do it because they don't want to. You know, I want to know what they're going to.
It's the only thing that's going to help dig us out of this economy. That's why everything's going to get legalized, and then we're going to go to war with Iran. That's my prediction. Let me be Dionne Warwick for a second. I've said this like 5 times. I feel really strongly about it. They're going to legalize hemp, and whoever's going to win the 2016 election, and I'm not a political person, but see, it's the Republicans' turn now. So they go Democrat, Republican, or Democrat, Democrat, and then sometimes they'll have Republicans on twice in a row. But now it's the Republicans' turn. So they got to find a liberal Republican who's going to legalize hemp across the board, and then we're going to go to war with Iran. That's my prediction.
We'll have new Hemp for Victory videos. The 2016-2017 version of it.
Right. And it's going to be GMO because Monsanto's already trying to GMO it. And
don't worry, they'll patent it. They'll patent THC.
They're trying to patent THC. It's
and
already happening.
They'll say, "Oh my God, this guy was growing his own plants," and they'll SWAT team people because it's you don't have Monsanto plants. Grow this genetically modified cannabis that when you ingest it in any way, shape, or form, you grow a third arm out of the back of your head, just like all their other GMO products.
That's right. Your paper is going to eat you. Your paper.
Back
have teeth.
Back 20 years ago, if you told people this, they would look at you and be like, "What are you, a whack job? You've been smoking crack, watching too many sci-fi movies." But literally, the mad scientists from these B-rated movies that you would watch on, what was it, USA Up All Night with Rhonda Shear?
Oh my gosh,
all those crappy movies that we used to watch growing up on that. Remember? You're like,
yes, I do.
Those bad guys are actually who's in charge now and actually doing things. I mean, John P. Holdren. That guy is totally a B-movie science bad guy, like mad scientist, crazy lunatic bad guy. I expect him to be pulling levers, going literally.
Well, it's just like. By the way, I hear your dog snoring, and I thought you farted.
But that's why I had to introduce Mom everybody years ago, because she snores so loud here underneath my feet. She's my little sidekick. She follows me all over. If I don't tell people that, I always assume they're going to be like, "Is he busting ass on air? What is he doing?" So no, every time you hear a little chainsaw in the background, that's Munchkin here. Yes, Monster, we're talking about you. Go back to sleep.
USA Up All Night. You remember that?
Oh my God.
I know. Up all night. Yeah. Back to the non-farting conversation. It's the Twilight Zone. Dr. Harold Hodge was the guy who told America, he was the leading scientist in the 40s, and he was the one that told America that water fluoridation or ingesting fluoride was perfectly fine and safe at 1 part per million. And we're finding more than that in our water supply now, of course, but most people don't know their medical history. And Dr. Harold Hodge also experimented on people by injecting plutonium into them without their consent. And there's a whole book about it called The Plutonium Files. So the same scientist that says, "Oh, this is totally safe," right, turned around and was actually the mad scientist himself. So doesn't that deserve revisiting? That maybe what he said was safe was more politically driven, and it's really not that safe?
Are you being a conspiracy theorist?
No, I'm not. Because it can be proven true. That's why I don't like that word.
Fact? Wait a minute. Nope. Is that conspiracy?
No such thing. Eliminate conspiracy and just say, I am repeating
I'm a factualist.
History. That's right, factualist. I'm a conspiracy realist, right? Isn't that what our friend
I'm just going to make my own thing. They say truther, like the CIA came out. That's another one of their little labels they put out, through the disinfo movement. Well, here's one for you. We'll just call ourselves factualists. There you go.
Yeah, if it can be proven true, how can you try to discredit somebody by calling them a conspiracy theorist? I'm not, you can go to Google Books online. That's one of my favorite resources. Start reading your own medical history. Truth is stranger than fiction. It is.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Okay, before we get too sidetracked, I want to go back to Sierra.
Sierra Riddle.
Yes, I want to give you the floor, and let me look at the clock here. We have about 17 minutes in total, so I'm going to give you take the next 15 minutes or as much time as you need and go over her story and get into as much detail as you want. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, before the break, we were talking about how Landon had been diagnosed with T-cell ALL leukemia. He was dying from the chemotherapy and lost all of his appetite, lost a ton of weight. It was really, it was a matter of life and death. And they had to move. They decided to move to Colorado, where Realm of Caring, which is an amazing dispensary, they supply for many families whose children have cancer or epilepsy, and Realm of Caring. They're just just amazing people, the Stanleys, and they moved there because it was legal. And they thought that there would be no problem at all in using cannabis oil instead of chemotherapy. And like every other parent whose right's been infringed upon, the hospital flipped a lid, and the oncologist did not suggest that, and they started to pursue them legally and with DCFS to remove him from her care and start forcing chemotherapy, knowing that he almost died from it before. So this mama bear just couldn't handle that. Meanwhile, before they moved to Colorado, CNN, but they did start to use the cannabis oil, CNN got a hold of them and was following them around actually for that documentary Weed with Sanjay Gupta when Landon was most sick. And so they just kept following their story, and there's actually going to be another segment with them, another like mini documentary, and their story is going to be told on how the cannabis oil works in Landon's body because she kept up with all of the tests and the testing. And finally, she decided he didn't need chemotherapy anymore. She was just going to heal his body using the cannabis oil, and she has all of the tests to prove it. DCFS just really didn't even want to get involved because they see that she is not neglecting her baby. It's not medical neglect when you're not doing nothing. She's busting her butt with research and keeping in contact with natural doctors and homeopaths and staying in contact with their cancer doctors, trying to get everybody to work with her on helping to keep her son healthy and healed, having a humane, effective, and compassionate treatment for him. So she is in the fight of her life, and she, thank God, the media has become her friend, and they're filming her, they're watching her, and she finally had to make the decision though to concede and allow chemotherapy, because it was either that or lose control of her son and, have them take control of him and his medical care. And she doesn't want that to happen either. So she is lobbying with legislators. She just got back from Florida not too long ago, talking about their story. Their thing should air, I believe, this month on CNN. If it hasn't already, I'll have to keep up with them. But I'm going to be telling their story at this organic gala, Hungry for Health Organic Gala, April 3rd through the 5th in Branson, Missouri. Go to Live Happy, Be Pure for that. I'm going to do my best to share their story and bring it justice and just let people know that this is helping children. This is helping families. This is helping children who need it. And it's, something that we all need to stand up for and ask and exercise our voting rights to get. So she's still being forced to give Landon chemotherapy, but she is keeping him alive through also simultaneously using CBD oil, the cannabis oil. And there are a lot of companies out there like Hemp Meds PX who have Sibdex, which is a CBD only. It does not have THC. It does not have the psychoreactive ingredient in it, but that is making it available to people. It's legal in all 50 states, and it's doing wonders for so many health ailments and health problems. So Sierra is just continuing to fight for her son. You can find them on Facebook at Offer Hope for Landon. And you can also friend her on Facebook. Go to YouTube, type in Sierra Riddle. Go to Google and type in Sierra Riddle, Landon Riddle. Her mother is phenomenal as well. They just have such a wonderful support system, and they're getting the help that they need through, cannabis people who lobby and people who are cannabis activists and different companies that make hemp products. They're helping this family because they are on the forefront of a major movement of change that we are seeing in our country take place. And if thank God she had this mama bear, tiger rawr, for her babies, because if she didn't have that for Landon, we don't know where he'd be right now. There was no way he was going to survive standard of care treatment. And we have to fight for our kids and say, your standard of care is not quality of life. And when it puts their life in more danger, it's like you can't ask me to hold a gun to my child's head. And it's a phenomenal story. And he's doing well. He's gained weight. He's gaining weight. He's continuing to stay alive and do really well, in spite of the fact that they have been forced to give him chemo. It's not what she would rather. And the fight is, they say, well, this kind of chemotherapy or this kind of cancer goes away very commonly with chemotherapy, 90% of the time. But you never know how an individual child's going to react to such harsh treatments. And it's a no-brainer. If your child doesn't have to suffer and lose their hair and doesn't have to be sick and just have such a low quality of life or no blood cell count in the case of another child that is being forcibly given chemotherapy. He has no white blood cells at all whatsoever. You can't ask that of a parent. It's wrong, and it should be illegal. And no parent should get in trouble for seeking out safe, humane, effective, compassionate treatments for their child.
I agree. Parents should not be put in a position where, they have to choose between having their kid ripped literally out of their hands and taken away from them,
care. Right.
Or accepting that these people are going to put poison in their child's veins. I mean, that's another reason I don't have kids, because I know how I would react. I'd be in jail.
Right.
Because
and that's and a lot of parents are trying to, exercise restraint, but you can only push people so far.
I have to be honest with you, there would be no restraint. And I'm not saying, I would go do something violent to anybody or anybody in particular. If they tried to come take my child out of my hands, when they came to my house to take my child, the kid would not leave. And they would have to put me in jail or in a pine box before my child went over the threshold and out. And I'm just keeping it real. I'm not,
No, you're right.
No, I'm telling you, I know how I am. It's another reason why I don't have kids right now, because I wouldn't be around to be doing this for, to help people. Because you try to take my offspring, it's on like Donkey Kong, and that's just what it is. I give credit to all you parents out there that have kids. You people have a lot more, self control in a situation, I guess, with than I would, because I wouldn't trust myself if I had a kid and they came to take my kid. Like when you see these Department of Children and Families or whatever, CPS, come and take kids, it wouldn't end well. Right. You'd have to bring an army with you to take the kid. Because I'd fight everybody. I don't care. I would take everybody down. I would go. You'd have to tase me in the face 18 times or shoot me.
Well, and that's what we again fail to realize is we're designed to react that way, right? We're designed to be disgusted and angry and upset and hurt and protective of our children. You can't ask us to flip that switch off and inject a chemical into them that's going to make them suffer. All under the guise and blanket statement that it's what's best for them. I get to decide that. I should be able to decide that, because I tell you what, when that child dies, who has to live with it? Not you, not the doctors. If that child dies, I have to live with that for the rest of my life. And that is punishment enough for parents. So I just it's approached so inhumanely. It is approached just like, they're acceptable losses, and that is unacceptable to me. The family in Chicago that I'm still following, they did not keep custody of their daughter. The state did get custody. The hospital medically kidnapped his daughter, and they kept feeding her cake and sugar and rewarding her. I mean, he flew her to a clinic in Arizona, and they were giving her greens, and the tumors were shrinking, and the cancer was going away, and she was learning a whole new lifestyle of eating after being raised on a standard American diet. And he was trying alternative therapies. I said he cashed in his 401k, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in a month. I mean, nobody can prove that he was neglectful in any way, shape, or form. But he got into the system because his daughter had pain, and he did the right thing by taking her to the hospital to try to figure out what this pain was, because she had just had a surgery. And it was, albeit experimental, but there were really great outcomes for kids with this kind of cancer. And he took her in, and they stuck an armed guard outside of her door, and he has not had custody of his daughter since. And now, not only is the cancer back, after all this rounds of chemo, she's lost her hair. But it's back. It's back with a vengeance. It's coming back in her lungs. They've scraped 50-some tumors off of her lungs on 8 different surgeries already. Her arm has been amputated. He had to fight to keep her arm, and they ended up amputating it anyway. So her quality of life is very poor right now. And they don't know if she's going to make it, if she's going to live another day. DCFS doesn't even want to be a part of the case anime. They're trying to pull out, and these doctors are making an example of this family. And what has happened to them it's atrocious. It's absurd. And I can't get anybody to help. Nobody. I've called every lawyer. I've called politicians. And this is, it's unfortunate because I'm just one person. I'm just a radio show host.
How about this? How about, do you have any of the contact info? Because we have like 7 minutes left. Do you have any of the contact info that maybe the listeners
Well, I mean, all I can do is basically have you email me, and I could put you in contact with these families, homegrownhealthradio@gmail.com. Homegrownhealthradio, all one word, @gmail.com.
This is what we're going to do. After the show, I'm going to get with you, and I'm going to schedule to interview as many of these people as I have to, even if I have to give
You're going to have to block out a week of shows.
That's fine. I don't care. I'll do a whole week of show. You know me. I roll like that. I don't care. 2 hours to each family. I don't care. I'll let them have 2 hours each.
You'll need at least that much time to cover each of their stories.
Okay, well, rock on. Let's do it. I'll pledge to it right now on air. Let's do it. I'll give them as much time as they need. I don't care.
Their stories need to be told, and I think that was the thing that hit me the hardest. Is I get hit with these stories all the time. This is a 5th family story in a year that these families are reaching out, and they just want help, and they just want justice, and they need their parental rights to be protected so they can do what is absolutely best for their children. Modern medicine looks at like these kids don't stand a fighting chance. So what? Let's reward them with sugar. Let's reward them with candy. Let's reward them with Doritos and all these chemical-filled fake-like foods. And you know what? That feeds the cancer. There's 22,750 studies in the National Library of Medicine that shows the sugar-cancer connection. Sugar is cancer fertilizer, yet that's what they give them in the hospital. And the parent has no right to bring in raw green food. The parent has no right to tell them, don't feed that to my kid. They just look at they actually were hiding food for this little girl. And then it became a struggle. So he'd come in to visit, and then the little girl would be scared because she's sneaking Doritos. The nurse is sneaking Doritos and pop to her. So don't let the dad see. And they're trying to paint him in court as this, controlling, abusive type dad. And he is the most docile, loving, laid back man I've ever known. So laid back. And he's just trying to work with the court system. And, they just don't work with him. And it just becomes a point of the Pelletier family. Gosh, there's another one in the Boston Children's Hospital. That's been all over Facebook and all over the news, where their daughter has been medically kidnapped for over 15 months. It's story after story after story. And once you start giving these parents a voice, you'd be amazed at what will come out. But their stories need to be told, and their stories need to be heard, because no child is an acceptable loss to me. And that's why I give them airtime, and that's why I try to help, because I would want I know if I was in that situation, I would want and pray and hope to God that somebody else would help me too. If I felt helpless and hopeless in a situation with my children, and my rights were being violated, I know I would want somebody to help me. And I think it's just kind of like that, feeling for humanity that we have to have.
You're handing me the baton when we get off air tonight, because, you're doing the right thing. I need to do the right thing. Other hosts out there need to do the right thing. Have them on. Give them a full 2 hours if you have to for each family. I'm going to. I think everybody should. This information needs to get out there. It doesn't matter if 15 different places are interviewing these people over the course of a month. Give them the airtime, the attention they deserve. Again, if it was your kid and you were in that situation, how would you feel?
Right. And you know what the sad thing about it is, most parents can't even imagine being in the situation until they're in it.
Well, they don't want to.
It's always somebody else's problem, right?
They don't, because they don't want to. It's not in my backyard.
Right. And I tell you, thank God for human rights award winners. I tell you, Marianne Godboldo, if you don't know that story, go to cchr.org, cchr.org at Citizens Commission on Human Rights. They really focus on the psychotropic aspect of natural health and parental rights infringements. But her lawyer, her name is Allison Folmar, I love this attorney. She won their Human Rights Award this year because she fought for Marianne Godboldo's right to protect her child. Marianne was the mom in Michigan who took the cops on and shot at them because they came to take her child wrongfully. And Marianne won last year's CCHR Human Rights Award. So there are some attorneys out there. Maurice Thompson from the 1851 Center for Constitutional Law. He's in Ohio. He was the Amish family, the Hirschberger family. He's their attorney. He's phenomenal. I love that guy. So Jonathan Emord is another really great attorney. He's a constitutional lawyer. He's, beat the FDA 9 times. But these attorneys are so few and far between. They don't know how. I've reached out to all these organizations, and they do not know how to fight this medical thing. I had one of the toughest Chicago lawyers go with Jay to his one of his initial hearings at the hospital. And this guy is a tough lawyer. He does police brutality cases. He's well known in Chicago for this. And he called me and said, I've been doing this for over 20 years, 25 years. He said, that was the most intimidating situation I'd ever been in. Because the hospitals have so many lawyers and so many social workers and so many people in the room to intimidate and to make parents feel in over their heads.
It's amazing how much money they waste actually doing this rather than actually, studying how to actually cure people. I think it's criminal that these hospitals and these doctors try to make examples of them because the doctor has his own personal feeling. I mean, this is literally a doctor abusing his authority. I don't know how some judge can't see that. Anybody with some common sense can see that. And I don't want to hear, you people are just making it, from an emotional standpoint. No, I'm not making a decision from an emotional standpoint. You're out of your mind. These doctors are totally abusing their authority, and they should be held criminally liable for the things that they do when they hurt these children. And even adults, too, as well. It's just criminal. Joni, we are out of time, dear.
Always.
It just goes by like bam, in the blink of an eye. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me share their stories.
You're an awesome human being, and I'm going to have to get you back on sooner rather than later. Ladies and gentlemen, as I always tell you, the solutions to our problems are most definitely an inside job. I hope tonight's broadcast brought you some enlightenment. Go check Joni out. She is just an awesome, awesome human being, as you all can tell tonight if you've just introduced to her for the first time. And again, don't look to other people to be your heroes. Be your own hero.